The transport ship landed on Kepler Station with a loud thud. Corporal Kim Tae-ho stepped out first and looked around at the massive space station. The walls were made of strange, alien metal that glowed softly in the artificial light. This was his first time working with aliens, and he felt nervous but excited. Behind him came 20 more human soldiers. They all wore the famous green berets that marked them as elite fighters. Each beret had been earned through months of brutal training back on Earth. Tae-ho touched his beret gently. It meant everything to him. Commander Yu Da-mi waited for them, at the dock. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a serious face. She had been working with the aliens for 2 years now. The aliens did not trust humans very much, but they needed help fighting their enemies. Commander Da-mi led them through long corridors filled with alien technology. Strange sounds echoed from the walls and weird smells filled the air. Some aliens walked past them and stared at the humans with curious eyes. Most aliens were much bigger than humans. They reached the main training facility, and Da-mi stopped walking. The room was huge with high ceilings and bright lights everywhere. Alien soldiers were training with weapons and practicing combat moves. Some were lifting weights that would crush a human instantly. The biggest group of aliens were called Vorthak. They looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. They had thick scales covering their bodies like natural armor. Their claws were as long as human fingers and sharp enough to cut through metal. Most Vorthak soldiers were 3 meters tall and weighed as much as small cars. One Vorthak noticed the humans entering and nudged his friends. Soon, all the aliens in the room were staring at the small group of human soldiers. Some aliens started, laughing and pointing at the humans. They whispered to each other in their strange languages. A massive Vorthak approached the human group. His scales were darker than the others and covered with old battle scars. His left eye was missing, and a long scar ran down his face. This was Sergeant Krextor, and he was famous for being cruel to weaker species. Krextor stopped right in front of Tae-ho and looked down at him. The alien was so tall that Tae-ho had to bend his neck back to see Krextor's face. The Vorthak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. His breath smelled like rotten meat. "What do we have here?" said Krextor in broken English. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. Little pink creatures playing soldier. The other aliens laughed loudly at his words. "Commander." Da-mi stepped forward and tried to speak, but Krextor ignored her. He kept staring at Tae-ho with his one good eye. The human soldier stood perfectly still and did not show any fear on his face. This seemed to anger the alien even more. Krextor reached out with one massive claw and flicked Tae-ho's green beret off his head. The beret flew through the air and landed on the dirty floor several meters away. All the human soldiers tensed, but none of them moved. They were trained to follow orders and wait for commands. The alien laughed again and lifted his huge foot. He brought it down hard on the green beret, grinding it into the floor with his weight. The beautiful green fabric got dirty and torn under his massive foot. Some of the other aliens cheered and clapped their hands. Tae-ho watched his beret being destroyed and felt something burning inside his chest. That beret represented years of hard training. It represented his dead friends who died earning theirs. It represented everything he believed in about being a soldier and protecting others. Commander Da-mi tried again to control the situation. "Sergeant Krextor, please show respect for human military traditions," she said in a firm voice. "We are here to work together as allies against common enemies." Krextor turned his attention to Da-mi and laughed even louder. "Military traditions," he repeated mockingly. "What military traditions can these weak creatures have? I have seen them fight and they break like glass toys when real warriors hit them." The alien began telling stories about recent battles where he had watched human soldiers die. He described in detail how their small bodies got torn apart by enemy weapons. He talked about how they screamed in fear before dying. Each word was designed to hurt and humiliate the listening humans. Other aliens gathered around to listen to Krextor's cruel stories. They seemed to enjoy hearing about human weakness and death. Some made jokes about how humans were too small to be real warriors. Others suggested that humans should stay home and let real fighters handle dangerous work. Tae-ho remained perfectly still during all of this. His breathing was slow and controlled like he had been taught in training. His hands stayed relaxed at his sides. His face showed no emotion at all. but inside his mind he was calculating and preparing. The other human soldiers watched their corporal carefully. They knew that look on his face. They had seen it before during combat training when someone pushed Taeho too far. Lieutenant Park, Minho, who commanded Taeho's squad, began to worry about what might happen next. Krextor was not finished with his insults. He bent down and picked up the dirty, torn beret from the floor. He held it up so everyone could see it clearly. "This little green hat," he said loudly, "is supposed to make you brave soldiers, but it is just cloth for cloth warriors." The alien began to tear the beret with his sharp claws. The sound of ripping fabric filled the training room. Pieces of green material fell to the floor like leaves from a dying tree. Each tear felt like a knife in Taeho's heart. Finally, Krextor threw the destroyed beret back on the floor and stepped on it again. He ground his foot back and forth, making sure it was completely ruined. Then he looked directly at Taeho and smiled his cruel smile. "Your weak human friends died wearing these useless hats," said Krextor. "Maybe you will die wearing yours too, little pink warrior. But first let me show you what real strength looks like." The alien reached toward Taeho, intending to grab him and demonstrate his superior power. Every human in the room held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Commander Dami opened her mouth to shout an order. The moment hung in the air like a blade about to fall. Time seemed to slow down as Krextor reached toward Taeho with his massive clawed hand. The alien moved with the confidence of a predator who had never met anything that could hurt him. His one good eye gleamed with cruel amusement as he prepared to grab the small human soldier. Taeho watched the alien's movement with perfect calm. Years of combat training had taught him to see everything in slow motion during dangerous moments. He could see exactly where Krextor would grab him. He could calculate the alien's balance and weak points. Most importantly, he could see the perfect target. Commander Dami started to shout an order for Taeho to stand down, but her words never finished. The human corporal moved faster than anyone in the room thought possible. His right hand snapped upward in a perfectly controlled strike. The human palm connected with the base of Krextor's skull, just where the thick neck scales met the thinner ones behind his head. Taeho had spent years studying alien anatomy in preparation for this assignment. He knew exactly where to hit for maximum effect. The sound of impact echoed through the training facility like a gunshot. Every alien in the room jumped at the unexpected noise. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Krextor's massive body froze in the middle of reaching for Taeho. His one eye went wide with shock and confusion. The alien's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His huge arms began to shake uncontrollably. Then slowly, like a giant tree falling in a forest, Krextor began to topple forward. His 3-meter-tall body swayed for a moment before gravity took control. The massive alien crashed to the floor, face first, with a thunderous bang that shook the entire room. Taeho stepped back and lowered his hand. His breathing remained perfectly calm and controlled. He looked down at the fallen alien without any expression on his face. The destroyed green beret lay nearby, covered in dirt and torn to pieces. The other aliens stared in complete disbelief. Their strongest warrior lay motionless on the training room floor. A human soldier barely half his size had put him down with a single strike. It seemed impossible, but they had all seen it happen. Some aliens rushed forward to check on Krextor. They rolled his massive body over and saw that his eyes were closed and his breathing was very shallow. Medical scanners immediately began beeping with urgent warnings about serious injuries. Dr. Park Hyo-jin, the human medical officer, pushed through the crowd of aliens. She knelt beside Krextor and began running diagnostic scans with her portable equipment. Her face grew serious as she read the results. Multiple skull fractures, she announced to Commander Dami. Severe trauma to the brainstem. His nervous system has been essentially shut down by the impact. The strike was surgically precise and targeted the most vulnerable point in Vorthak anatomy. The aliens around her began to mutter angrily among themselves. How could a weak human know so much about their biology? How could such a small creature generate enough force to crack their natural armor? Some began to suspect that humans had been hiding their true capabilities. More medical staff arrived and carefully lifted Krextor onto a stretcher. The massive alien looked strangely small and helpless as they carried him toward the medical bay. His arms hung limply over the sides of the stretcher and his head rolled back unconsciously. Commander Dami immediately took control of the situation. All human personnel return to quarters immediately, she ordered. Nobody speaks about what happened here until further notice. She knew that news of this incident would spread quickly through the Galactic Defense Force. The alien soldiers watched the humans leave with new expressions on their faces. The mockery and laughter were gone. Instead, they looked confused and worried. Some seemed afraid. The small creatures they had dismissed as harmless had just proven very dangerous. Lieutenant Park Minho walked beside Tae-ho as they headed back to their quarters. He had worked with a corporal for 3 years and knew him better than anyone. The strike had not been made in anger or desperation. It had been calculated and perfectly executed. Tae-ho said nothing as they walked through the corridors. Other aliens they passed stared at him with wide eyes. Word was already spreading about what had happened in the training facility. The human who had felled a Vorthak warrior with one blow. In the medical bay, Dr. Park Hyo-jin continued working on Krextor. The alien's condition was stable but serious. The human strike had caused extensive damage without actually killing him. She realized that this level of precision required incredible knowledge and skill. Commander Dami contacted Galactic Command to report the incident. She knew that high-ranking officials would demand answers. The delicate relationship between humans and aliens could be destroyed by what had happened today. As she waited for her call to connect, Dami thought about Tae-ho's service record. The young corporal had always been exceptional at close combat training. His instructors had noted his unusual ability to analyze and exploit enemy weaknesses, but none of them had expected this. The commander also thought about the months of harassment her soldiers had endured from aliens like Krextor. The big creatures seemed to enjoy tormenting humans because of their smaller size. They never expected the humans to fight back effectively. News of the incident spread through Kepler Station within hours. Alien soldiers gathered in small groups discussing what they had witnessed. Many refused to believe that a human could defeat a Vorthak warrior. Others began to wonder what else humans might be hiding. In the human quarters, Tae-ho sat on his bunk, cleaning his equipment. His fellow soldiers watched him with mixture of admiration and concern. They knew he had defended their honor, but they also knew there would be serious consequences. The torn and dirty green beret lay on a table nearby. Tae-ho had carefully collected all the pieces after returning from the training facility. Even destroyed, it still meant everything to him. It represented the sacrifice of better soldiers than himself. Several hours later, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station. Medical teams rushed toward the alien quarters where several Vorthak soldiers had gotten into fights with each other. Tensions were rising as news of Krextor's defeat spread. Commander Dami received word that Galactic Command was sending a full investigation team. High-ranking officials from multiple alien species would arrive within 2 days. They would decide whether humans could remain part of the Galactic Defense Force. The commander looked out at the stars through her office window. Humanity had worked for decades to earn a place among the galactic community. Everything they had built could be destroyed by one moment of violence in a training room. But as she thought about it more, Dami began to realize that maybe this incident would change things in ways nobody expected. The aliens had seen human capabilities that had been hidden for years. Perhaps it was time for the galaxy to understand what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. The investigation team arrived on Kepler Station exactly 48 hours after the incident. 5 different alien species sent their highest-ranking military officials to determine what had happened and what should be done about it. Commander, Dami watched their ships dock through her office window. General Choi Woo-shik stepped off the lead transport ship wearing his full-dress uniform. He was the highest-ranking human in the entire Galactic Defense Force and had spent 20 years building relationships with alien commanders. His face looked tired and worried as he walked toward the station entrance. The alien officials who arrived with him were impressive and intimidating. Admiral Zethara represented the Altarian Council with her 4 arms and silver skin that reflected light like metal. Commander Thokmar spoke for the Vorthak military with his massive frame and battle-scarred hide. 3 other species sent equally important representatives. Within hours of their arrival, the formal hearing began in the station's main conference room. Corporal Tae-ho stood at attention in the center of the room, while alien officials sat around him in a large circle. Their various eyes and sensors focused on him like weapons targeting an enemy. Commander Dami sat at a small table with General Choi. She had prepared detailed reports about the incident, but she knew that facts might not be enough to save her soldier or humanity's position in the galactic military. Politics would play a bigger role than truth. The hearing began with security footage from the training facility. Multiple cameras had recorded the entire incident from different angles. The alien officials watched in silence as the events played, out on large screens around the room. They saw Krextor destroying Taiho's green beret and making his cruel speeches about human weakness. They saw the moment when the alien reached toward the human soldier. Then they saw the lightning-fast strike that brought down the massive warrior. Admiral Zethara requested that the crucial moment be played again in slow motion. Even at reduced speed, Taiho's movement was almost too fast to follow. His hand seemed to appear at the base of Krextor's skull without traveling through the space between. The precision was surgical and deadly. Commander Thokmar stood up from his chair and pointed one massive claw at Taiho. This human attacked a superior officer without provocation, he declared in his deep rumbling voice. Such actions cannot be tolerated in any military organization. He demands immediate punishment and removal from service. General Choi rose to respond, but Tae-ho spoke first. The human corporal's voice was calm and clear as he addressed the alien officials. He explained what the green beret meant to human soldiers and why its destruction was such a serious insult. He described the training required to earn one and the brothers who had died wearing them. The aliens listened with varying degrees of interest and confusion. Most of their species valued only physical strength and dominance. The idea that a piece of cloth could have deep meaning was difficult for them to understand. Some seemed genuinely puzzled by human concepts of honor and tradition. Tae-ho continued, speaking about human military culture. He explained how respect was earned through actions rather than size or natural advantages. He talked about the battles humans had fought against larger and stronger enemies throughout their history. His words were simple but carried deep conviction. Dr. Park Hyo-jin was called to testify about Krextor's injuries. She presented detailed medical scans showing the exact damage caused by the human strike. The precision required was beyond what most species could achieve even with extensive training. The target location suggested intimate knowledge of Vorthak anatomy. This revelation caused whispers among the alien officials. How could humans know so much about their biological weak points? Had they been studying alien species for military purposes while pretending to be peaceful partners? Some began to suspect that humanity had hidden agendas. Lieutenant Park Min-ho requested permission to speak and was granted the floor. He provided crucial testimony about weeks of harassment that human soldiers had endured from Krextor and other aliens. The destroyed beret was not an isolated incident, but the final provocation in a pattern of abuse. The lieutenant described how Krextor had used his size and position to intimidate human personnel. He had blocked their access to training equipment, forced them to clean his quarters, and made them perform menial tasks that were not part of their duties. The alien had enjoyed tormenting creatures he saw as inferior. Other human soldiers were called to confirm these testimonies. Each one described similar experiences with alien personnel who seemed to enjoy making humans feel small and helpless. The pattern of abuse had been systematic and ongoing since their arrival at the station. Admiral Zethara asked why these incidents had not been reported through proper channels. Commander Dami explained that she had tried multiple times to address the harassment through official complaints. Her reports had been ignored or dismissed as cultural misunderstandings by alien administrators. The hearing continued for 6 hours as more evidence and testimony was presented. Security footage from previous weeks showed numerous incidents of aliens mistreating human personnel. The behavior had been escalating over time, leading inevitably toward some kind of confrontation. As the evidence mounted, some alien officials began to shift their positions. What had initially appeared to be an unprovoked attack now looked more like justified self-defense. The human had endured weeks of abuse before finally striking back when pushed beyond his limits. But other aliens remained convinced that Tae-ho should be punished severely. They argued that military discipline required following proper channels. rather than taking personal action. Physical violence against superior officers could not be tolerated regardless of provocation. General Choi finally stood to present humanity's official position. He acknowledged that Taeho's actions violated military protocol, but argued that the circumstances were exceptional. The human soldier had acted to defend not just himself, but the honor of his entire species. The general presented classified information about human military capabilities that had been kept secret until now. Combat techniques that allowed smaller fighters to defeat larger opponents through superior training and precision. Physiological advantages that humans possessed despite their apparent physical weaknesses. The alien officials studied this new information with growing interest and concern. They began to realize that they had seriously underestimated human potential. The species they had dismissed as weak support troops possessed sophisticated fighting abilities that could threaten much larger opponents. As the hearing concluded, Admiral Zathara called for a recess while the officials discussed their verdict in private. Taeho remained standing at attention while the aliens filed out of the room. His fate and possibly humanity's future in the galactic community hung in the balance. Commander Dami approached her soldier and spoke quietly to him. "Whatever happens next," she said, "you defended our honor when nobody else could. Every human in the galaxy owes you a debt for showing them that we will not be pushed around forever." General Choi joined them and placed a hand on Taeho's shoulder. The young corporal had proven something important about human nature. When cornered and threatened, they would not submit meekly. They would fight back with everything they possessed and win through skill rather than size. The waiting began as alien officials debated behind closed doors. The decision they reached would determine whether humans remained part of the galactic military or were expelled in disgrace. Everything depended on whether the aliens could accept that strength came, in many forms. While the alien officials debated behind closed doors, Captain Zathara requested access to human military records from the past 5 years. She was known throughout the galactic community as one of the finest strategic minds, and her curiosity about human capabilities had been sparked by the hearing. The captain spent hours reviewing combat reports from every engagement involving human forces. What she discovered amazed and worried her in equal measure. Humans had consistently performed far beyond expectations in every single battle they had participated in during their time with the Galactic Defense Force. The data painted a picture that no one had bothered to examine before. Human casualties were always lower than predicted. Their mission success rates exceeded theoretical models. Most surprising of all, their combat effectiveness actually increased during longer engagements when other species typically showed declining performance. Zathara pulled up detailed analysis of the Battle of Rigel 7, where human forces had held a defensive position against overwhelming odds. The mathematical model said they should have been overrun within 2 hours. Instead, they held for 18 hours until reinforcements arrived and helped achieve total victory. She examined the siege of Tau Ceti, where a mixed force including humans had been trapped on a hostile planet for 6 weeks. Other species had suffered severe psychological breakdown from the prolonged stress. The humans had somehow maintained peak fighting efficiency throughout the entire ordeal. Most intriguing was the pattern recognition incident at Vega Station, where human analysts had identified enemy infiltration tactics that had fooled alien intelligence services for months. The humans seemed to possess intuitive understanding of deception and misdirection that other species lacked. Dr. Park Hyo-jin had been granted permission to conduct detailed medical analysis of Taeho's strike for the investigation. Her findings were classified at the highest levels, but she shared them with Captain Zathara during a private meeting in the medical bay. "The precision required for that strike exceeds anything we have seen from other species," explained the human doctor. Taeho targeted a vulnerability in Vorthak anatomy that even their own medical experts were not fully aware of. The force was calculated to incapacitate without causing permanent damage. Zathara studied the medical scans with her 4 eyes while her advanced brain processed the implications. This level of anatomical knowledge, combined with perfect motor control, suggested capabilities that the galactic scientific community had completely overlooked in their assessment of human potential. How Long do humans train to achieve this level of skill? Asked the alien captain. Dr. Park smiled and explained that Tejo was actually considered average among human special forces. The truly elite soldiers could perform feats that would seem impossible to other species. The doctor showed Zethara classified footage of human training exercises. Soldiers moving through obstacle courses at incredible speeds. Hand-to-hand combat demonstrations where smaller humans defeated much larger opponents through superior technique. Marksmanship displays where humans hit targets at ranges other species considered impossible. Word of these discoveries began spreading through certain circles in the alien military hierarchy. Commander Thokmar received reports from other Vorthak, officers who had started paying attention to human behavior patterns. Their observations were disturbing. The small creatures they had been bullying and intimidating were constantly watching and learning. Human soldiers studied alien movements and reactions with scientific precision. They seemed to catalog every weakness and vulnerability they observed during routine interactions. Several Vorthak reported feeling uncomfortable under human observation. The aliens had always assumed their size and strength made them obviously superior, but now they wondered if the humans had been gathering intelligence for some hidden purpose. Lieutenant Park Min-ho was approached by alien officers who wanted to understand human combat training methods. They had heard rumors about the incident and were curious about how such small creatures could be so dangerous when properly prepared. Min-ho arranged a demonstration in one of the smaller training rooms. He invited a select group of alien observers to watch human soldiers practice their martial arts and weapons training. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about combat effectiveness. The humans moved with fluid precision that seemed almost supernatural. Their techniques were based on leverage and timing rather than brute force. They could generate devastating power by channeling their entire body weight through perfectly placed strikes. Most impressive was their adaptability. When faced with opponents of different sizes and capabilities, the humans instantly adjusted their techniques. They seemed to have training methods for fighting every type of enemy they might encounter. One young Altarian officer asked to try sparring with a human soldier. Despite having 4 arms and superior reach, he found himself on the ground within seconds. The human had used the alien's extra limbs against him, turning them into disadvantages rather than advantages. Captain Zethara compiled all of this information into a comprehensive report that she shared with the other alien officials. Her conclusion was that humanity represented a completely different approach to warfare than anything the galactic community had encountered before. Most species relied on natural advantages, like size strength or special abilities. Humans had no significant natural advantages but had developed incredibly sophisticated methods to overcome their limitations. They were the ultimate underdog species who refused to accept defeat. The report suggested that human military philosophy could benefit all members of the Galactic Defense Force. Their training methods and tactical thinking represented innovations that could improve combat effectiveness across all species. But the report also contained warnings. Humans were far more dangerous than they appeared, and had been systematically studying alien weaknesses while pretending to be harmless partners. Their true capabilities had been deliberately hidden during their integration into galactic society. Admiral Zethara called an emergency session with the other officials to discuss these findings. The decision about Taiho's punishment had suddenly become much more complicated. They were not just judging one soldier's actions, but evaluating humanity's entire role in galactic affairs. Some officials argued that humans had been deceptive and could not be trusted with sensitive military information. Others suggested that human capabilities should be embraced and integrated into standard training protocols. The debate continued through the night. Commander Dami received word that the decision had been postponed pending further investigation. Teams of alien specialists would spend the next week studying human military records and observing training exercises. Humanity was under more scrutiny than ever before, but there were positive signs as well. Requests began coming in from alien commanders who wanted human advisors assigned to their units. The species that had been barely tolerated was suddenly in high demand for their unique skills and perspectives. General Choi met with senior human officers to discuss this changing situation. They had spent years trying to prove that humans deserved respect as military partners. Ironically, it had taken an act of violence to finally demonstrate their true value. The general made a crucial decision. Instead of trying to downplay human capabilities, they would embrace them fully. If the galaxy wanted to see what humans could really do in combat, they would get a complete demonstration. Orders went out to all human units throughout the Galactic Defense Force. The time for hiding their abilities was over. From now on, they would train and fight at full capacity, showing the alien community exactly what properly motivated humans could accomplish. The response was immediate and dramatic. Human units that had been performing well began achieving unprecedented results. Their alien partners watched in amazement as the small creatures they had dismissed revealed capabilities that bordered on superhuman. Within days, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human forces were setting new records for mission success rates. Their innovative tactics were being copied by alien units. Most importantly, their fighting spirit was inspiring other species to push beyond their own perceived limitations. 3 days after the hearing ended, Krextor finally opened his one good eye in the medical bay. The massive Vorthak warrior tried to sit up, but waves of dizziness forced him back down onto the specially reinforced bed. His head felt like it was splitting apart, and his vision kept blurring in and out of focus. Dr. Park Hyojin noticed that her patient was awake and approached his bedside with her medical scanner. The human doctor had been monitoring his condition constantly since the incident. His recovery was progressing better than expected, but he would need weeks of treatment before returning to active duty. The alien warrior stared at the small human woman with confusion and growing anger. "Where am I?" he demanded in his rough voice. "What happened to me?" His memories of the training facility were fragmented and unclear. He remembered reaching toward a human soldier, and then nothing but darkness. Dr. Park explained his injuries in simple terms while running her scanner over his massive head. "You suffered severe trauma to your skull and brainstem," she told him calmly. "You have been unconscious for 3 days while your body began healing from the damage. You are lucky to be alive." Krextor tried again to remember what had happened, but the memories would not come clearly. He recalled destroying some human equipment and making speeches about their weakness. Then there had been pain unlike anything he had ever experienced, and everything went black. The door to the medical bay opened and Corporal Taeho entered carrying a chair. He set it down beside Krextor's bed and sat quietly without saying anything. The alien warrior stared at the human soldier, trying to understand why he was there. "You did this to me," said Krextor after several minutes of silence. His voice was weaker than usual but still filled with anger. "You attacked me when I was not prepared. It was not honorable combat between warriors. The human should be executed for such cowardice." Taeho listened to these words without showing any emotion on his face. Then he began to speak in his calm, steady voice. He told Krextor about human military traditions and what the Green Beret represented to soldiers like himself. He explained how the aliens' actions had been seen as ultimate insults. The human soldier described battles throughout Earth's history, where smaller forces had defeated larger enemies through superior training and determination. He talked about soldiers who had died defending their honor and their comrades against impossible odds. His words were simple but carried deep meaning. Krextor listened with growing fascination despite his anger. His species had always believed that might made right, and the strongest warriors deserved to rule over weaker ones. The idea that smaller creatures could develop systems to overcome natural disadvantages was completely foreign to him. Taeho continued explaining human military philosophy. He described how humans turned every disadvantage into motivation to become better fighters, how they studied their enemies and developed specific techniques to exploit weaknesses, how they never accepted defeat as final. The alien warrior began to understand that he had not been attacked by a coward or deceiver. He had been struck down by a soldier who represented thousands of years of human military evolution. Every technique and strategy developed through countless battles against superior opponents. Over the following days, Taeho visited Krextor regularly during his recovery. Each conversation revealed more about human capabilities and culture. The alien slowly began to respect what he was learning about these small, determined creatures. Other alien soldiers also visited the medical bay, drawn by curiosity about the human who had felled their strongest warrior. They expected to find a savage beast or hidden monster, but instead met a quiet professional soldier who spoke respectfully about military service. Dr. Park used these visits as opportunities to educate the aliens about human physiology and psychology. She explained how humans could channel fear and anger into focused action, how their nervous systems allowed for incredible precision under extreme stress, how their minds could process multiple variables instantly during combat. The aliens learned that human combat training involved much more than physical techniques. Soldiers studied psychology to understand enemy behavior patterns. They learned about different species' biological vulnerabilities. They practiced meditation to maintain calm focus during chaotic battles. Captain Zeth Ara visited Krextor after receiving permission from the medical staff. She brought data tablets containing her research about human military history. The recovered warrior spent hours reading about battles and campaigns that seemed impossible, but had actually happened. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 humans held off hundreds of thousands of enemies. The Siege of Bastonia, where surrounded soldiers refused to surrender despite hopeless conditions. The defense of Rorke's Drift, where a tiny garrison defeated massive attacking forces through courage and teamwork. Each story showed the same pattern. Humans faced with overwhelming odds who refused to give up. Small forces that used superior training and determination to achieve victory against larger enemies. Warriors who turned desperate situations into legendary triumphs through pure willpower. Krextor began to understand that his defeat was not shameful but educational. He had encountered a warrior from a species that specialized in overcoming superior opponents. The human strike had been the result of centuries of military development focused on defeating stronger enemies. Commander Dami received reports that alien attitudes toward human soldiers were changing rapidly throughout the station. The mockery and harassment had stopped completely. Instead, aliens were asking questions about human training methods and combat techniques. Several alien officers requested permission to observe human training exercises. They wanted to understand how such small creatures could be so dangerous when properly prepared. Commander Dami approved these requests, hoping to build better relationships between species. The training demonstrations amazed the alien observers. They watched humans practice hand-to-hand combat techniques designed specifically for fighting larger opponents. They saw marksmanship displays where soldiers hit targets at ranges other species considered impossible. Most impressive were the tactical exercises where human units faced simulated enemies with superior numbers and equipment. The humans consistently found ways to win through superior planning and coordination. They seemed to specialize in turning disadvantages into advantages. Word of these demonstrations spread throughout the Galactic Defense Force. Alien commanders, who had previously dismissed humans as useful only for support roles, began requesting them for frontline combat missions. The tide of opinion was shifting dramatically. Krextor made an important decision during his second week of recovery. He asked Dr. Park to arrange a meeting with Commander Dami and senior human officers. The alien warrior had something important to discuss about his future role in the military. When the meeting took place, Krextor shocked everyone by formally apologizing. 6 months later, the same training facility hosts a very different scene. Krextor, now fully recovered, leads a mixed unit of human and alien soldiers. He wears a modified version of human military gear, adapted for his massive frame. The Vorthak warrior has become one of humanity's strongest advocates in the GDF. His near-death experience taught him to respect human capabilities, and his recovery was aided by human medical techniques that amazed alien doctors. Corporal Taiho has been promoted to sergeant and now runs the elite combat training program. His methods combine human martial arts with alien physical advantages, creating unprecedented fighting effectiveness. The program has become the most requested assignment in the GDF. Commander Dami stands before the Galactic Defense Council, no longer fighting for humanity's acceptance, but helping plan their integration into command positions. The species that was barely tolerated months ago now sits at the strategic planning table. The story comes full circle as new human recruits arrive at the station. Among them is Private Kim So-young, a young woman carrying the same pride and determination that brought humanity to this point. She wears her green beret with quiet confidence. But now, when she enters the training facility, alien soldiers nod, respectfully. They've learned that strength comes in many forms, and humanity's greatest weapon was never their size or natural armor. It was their refusal to accept limitations. Krextor approaches the new recruits, his massive frame still imposing, but his manner completely changed. He gently touches his own modified beret, a symbol of the honor he's learned to understand. "Welcome to the team," he says in careful English. "We have much to learn from each other." The final scene shows the mixed human-alien unit deploying for their first mission together. As their transport lifts off, Taiho sits beside his former enemy, now his trusted partner. The green beret that started a diplomatic incident has become a symbol of mutual respect and shared purpose. The galactic community has learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't in their individual power, but in their ability to turn any disadvantage into an advantage through training, determination, and unbreakable spirit. The slap heard around the galaxy became the moment when humanity truly earned their place among the stars.